Hello friends. Hello friends. This is Sanjay Barnwal. Today I am going to take you through a familiarization in SAP. Uh, Recently I had conducted a workshop for college students of the Oxford College of Engineering in Bangalore. Agenda we had kept is help the students understand what is SAP, what are the different modules and their sub modules in SAP, and how students should select SAP module for their career progression. Also talking about career opportunities post you understand one or two SAP modules. So I saw like students were quite excited, and they had taken this workshop quite effective. It was very effective for them, and they participated enthusiastically. So I thought to uh, share this information with the wider audience. This video is not for people who are already working in SAP and understand different modules and their sub-modules. This video is mainly for people who want to get into SAP and want to know what are the challenges or what are the complexities in SAP, which are the different modules, their sub-modules, how does it work. So I would say it's for a newbie into newbie for in SAP world. So this was the objective. Let me just keep the screen pointer. So this was the objective: provide the participants with an overview of general SAP concepts and modules and the career opportunity available within SAP environment. And agenda we had was one little introduction to SAP and how the SAP architecture works, what are the SAP modules, and then last is the career opportunities. So as SAP, we talk SAP a lot, right? So what is the SAP? So SAP stands for Systems, Applications and Products in Data Processing. It's an ERP software. So ERP again stands for Enterprise Resource Planning Software. It was started by 5 former IBM employees: Dietmar Hopp, Hasso Plattner, Hans Werner Hector, Klaus Schira and Klaus Wellnerether. And they started in 1972. Currently, SAP S4HANA is the main product of SAP, I would say. And in S4HANA, many people want to know what is S4. So S stands for simple and 4 stands for fourth generation of business suite. So SAP Simple fourth generation of business suite in HANA. That's the full form. So and more than 183,000 customers in 130 plus countries currently use SAP applications. And as you can see, almost 80% plus Fortune 500 companies are using one or other SAP applications. And this is the SAP Journey. As you can see, it started in 1972 and the first version was R1. And then in 1979 they introduced R2 version. So two tier in in first two tier SAP, and which was based on mainframe. In 1992 SAP brought in R3. So 3-tier architecture basically. So you have a client, server and applications. So in 2000 then they introduced MySAP, which was a web based so www platform. In 2004 then they introduced NetWeaver platform. In 2011 was the very big revolution. So they introduced SAP HANA, which was in-memory computing, and it was introduced by Vishal Sikka. Many of you might have heard about Vishal Sikka, who was recently CEO of Infosys. So he had brought this SAP HANA in-memory computing in 2011. After that, SAP introduced SAP Simple Finance powered by HANA in 2014. So during this period we were using ECC, SAP ECC Enterprise platform, but after HANA was introduced, then they started selling SAP based on HANA platform, and first was the SAP Simple Finance. Finally, in 2015, they introduced SAP S/4HANA. SAP architecture basically has got as I was saying, 3-layer architecture, and the landscape is development, quality, and production server. And in the architecture, as you can see, it has a presentation layer, application layer, and database layer. So from a layman perspective, when we talk about dev, quality, and production server, so all the development activity will happen in this place, in this system landscape. Once development is done, then it is sent to quality server for the testing by the end user. And once testing is done, then it gets transported to production server. Any defect found in the quality server during testing needs to be worked upon again in the dev server and sent back to quality server for further testing. SAP, as you can see here, this is a legacy system. Like you have here all these different modules, they don't interact with each other. However, within SAP, it uses a sub-ledger concept. So you will have a sub-ledger for sales, materials management, inventory management, asset management, purchasing, even within finance, AR, AP. These are all sub-ledger. So ultimately everything flows to general ledger. And that's why it is called SAP uses this sub-ledger concept. So now let's understand what are the different SAP modules. So these are the main primary major modules within SAP. So FICO, Finance and Controlling, HR, Human Resources, SD, Sales and Distribution, MM, Materials Management, PP, Production Planning, PM, Plant Maintenance, QM, Quality Management, PS, Project System. Then these are some additional add-on. So Ariba is for indirect procurement, BPC is for budgeting, planning and consolidation. But then again, core module is another, basis and security, and above. So these two are pure technical side. So I'll explain you all of them separately. So as we can see, mainly you have 11 modules. 3, 6, 3, 9, 10 modules, and these two are add-ons. So let's understand in SAP Finance and Controlling what are the different sub-modules. So SAP Finance contains your general ledger, accounts payable, accounts receivable, fixed assets, bank accounting, inventory accounting, financial statements. So general ledger is the main where you will be creating your financial statement like trial balance, profit and loss account, balance sheet, etc. And as I said, all these sub modules will flow their entries to the general ledger. So you need to understand how the chart of accounts is configured, how currency valuation is posted, how your entries flow from these subledgers to GL. So there are lots of configuration involved to post to the GL account. In case of accounts payable, you need to understand how the setup related to, say, vendor management, payment terms, those things work. Payment program you will have to configure. So when you are making you need to configure your invoice processing. So all these things you will be doing in the accounts payable. You can also define different categories of vendors, external vendor, domestic vendor, intercompany vendor, likewise. Same way in accounts receivable, this is related to your sales side. So here again you can define your types of customers. Then you can define credit management related to the customers. Then you can define your payment terms. These are the different things you can define here in the accounts receivable. You then also learn about aging analysis related to accounts receivable. So again, I'm giving you very high level, and and objective of this video is to give you a very high level of what are the different sub modules within each SAP modules, and then when you get into deeper, you will learn more and more. For fixed assets is mainly related to your how do you acquire and retire assets, how do you do the depreciation, how the entries related to acquisition, depreciation, retirement will flow to GL account. How can you report your tax related depreciation, your Ind-AS or IFRS related depreciation. All these things you learn here. Categorization of your assets, defining different depreciation, useful life, or your if you have some residual value. So those things you will define here. How do you post unplanned depreciation? How you can do the write-up? There are a lot of things you need to learn in asset accounting, fixed assets. How do you do the asset under construction, capitalization of AUC and all? Then in bank accounting, it's more related to your managing your cash flow. So you will define your different bank accounts, and then you will also need to configure how do you manage your payment files, sending payment files from SAP to the bank, or receiving the bank statement from your bank to SAP. So those things you define here within the bank accounting. You also define your cash flow forecasting within using through the bank accounting module. In inventory accounting, you will be defining types of your inventory. So and you think called valuation class. So you will define like whether my inventory is finished goods, raw materials, or semi-finished goods, and accordingly you will assign GL accounts. Then also you will be looking into the how the pricing should happen for the inventory accounting. Then you also learn here slow moving, non-moving inventory, how the provision works in inventory account, how the price revision in inventory can be done. So you learn these types of things here. Financial statements, here you will learn like how the chart of account, balance sheet should be created, how the balance sheet or profit and loss account as per Schedule 6 of Companies Act can be designed. Or if you are in some other countries, so for example US GAAP or IFRS, so you will design your financial statement version, it is called. So you designed in this segment. So this is all related to your finance. So each sub module will have lots of things for you to learn. So if you want to get into finance, so you need to understand at least a brief about each of them, and then you focus on one of the sub module. Initially, you may not be able to understand each of them all to everything you will not be able to understand. So focus on one of them. Now coming back to controlling. So in controlling, as we know, finance is mainly for the external reporting purpose. But when it comes to controlling, it's more related to your management accounting. So within controlling, you use cost center accounting, profit center accounting, how the cost allocation can be done, how to move cost from one cost center to another cost center or another cost object. How do we do the settlement? So those things you define here. How do we do cost center planning, profit center budget planning? So again, these things you learn in these two sections. Product costing is one of the very complex area within controlling, but it's also one of the very critical requirement, more particularly for the companies who are involved in the manufacturing business. So they need to know how much cost it's going to be to produce a certain finished goods. So product costing helps you. What it does, it uses BOM, bill of material, and routing routing basically means the route through which the bill of material will pass, and it will involve certain time activities. So different machines will be spending certain amount of activities, and then you cost all of them together to get your product cost. So in SAP basically we will have two types of pricing. One is called standard price, and another is called moving average price. So product costing, when we talk, it's always a standard price. Last thing in profitability and controlling, you learn about profitability analysis. So profitability analysis is more related to helping your management to understand how a business segment is performing. So you define a characteristics here. So for example, types based on a customer group, or based on your sales area, distribution channel, how much, or product group you want to know how much profit I am earning. So profitability analysis allow you to do that. So you learn here characteristics and value field. Value field is nothing but the your revenue and expense items, whereas characteristics are the objects on which you derive your profitability analysis report. Like the example I told you, so you can think of, okay, for example, garment manufacturing company may have different types of product group. So they want to know, okay, for example, Raymond may want to know how much profitability they are getting from Park Avenue compared to their other brands. So that you get through profitability analysis. So both these modules, finance and controlling, are exclusive to each other, and you will have to get, if you want to get training, you need to first focus on one of them. You cannot get expertise in both of them at the same time. So you need to first identify which one you want to go, and accordingly then you get the training and you can get the certification later on. Okay, coming back to human resources related sub-modules. So these are the different modules in human resources. SAP HR you will find. So personnel administration, talent management, time management, organizational management, payroll, travel management. Again, some of them are here, like for example, payroll management. So this you need to understand how to link with the finance, because whenever you are processing your pay slip and all, entries should also go to GL account. As we earlier spoke, right, that SAP works on a sub-ledger concept. So HR also becomes a sub-ledger. Then in case of organizational structure, you will identify, okay, this employee, you will set up the employee master data first within the personnel administration, and here you will define like employee personal detail, for example, date of birth, name, place of birth, things like educational information, like that. In case of organizational management, you define this employee belongs to which cost center, what is his position, what is his reporting structure. So those things you define here. Cost center again is your finance and controlling area. So that's how it is linked. Then you have this talent management. So SAP also helps you to do the appraisal process. You can, there is another module called success factors. So SAP success factors is another HR module where you will be able to do all these things. So but let's right now I'm talking more from the SAP core HR module perspective. Then you have a time management. So within the time management, you can work on how the leaves should be, different types of leaves you configure, and you also define for the, employee and leave entitlement, and how it should be calculated, how the leave without pay or sick leave, earned leave, all those things you configure here. Travel management is another very critical module within SAP, and now SAP also has introduced Concur. Concur is again SAP bought Concur sometimes back, and they are now pushing to use Concur instead of SAP Core Travel Management. Travel management is mainly used by the employees for their business travel purpose, or when some employee is joining office or exiting company. So that time also travel management is used. So in this you will learn how the travel request can be created, how to send it for approval to the manager, per diem and hotel related expenses, how to book those things, how the when the employee completes the travel, how the travel expense needs to be booked, which GL accounts to be posted to when the travel expense is booked, if there is any advances to paid to the employee at the time of travel request creation, how to settle those advances, whether anything further need to be paid to the employee or recover to be recovered from the employee. All these things you learn here within the travel management module. So again, HR is another very critical module, and you don't see many people available in HR module, and in travel management you will see far lesser people. So this is a very good area for someone who wants to get into SAP, but you need to have some good understanding about how these HR processes work. Okay, now let's talk about SD submodules. So SD stands for sales and distribution. So sales and distribution basically from an organization perspective is when you are planning to do sales, right? So you need to have your sales department, you need to have your marketing team and all, and you will have different sales offices across the country or across the globe, wherever, if you are a very large organization. So within SAP SD submodules, these are the things you need to learn. So like inquiries. So in SAP SD side, first thing it starts with your inquiries. So customers will send you inquiries. They want to know something about your products. Then based on that inquiries, you submit your quotation. And once they confirm it, that gets converted to your sales order. So these things you learn, in sales order you can define different types of sales order. So you can have a intercompany, not intercompany, sales order will not have intercompany, but you can have like sales order for different types of products. You can create sales order. So then you learn pricing and discount. So here you when you create a sales order, so to get to the price of a product, you do through this submodule pricing and discounts. So you define different condition types. So it will start with your base price, which could be your cost standard price of the material. Then you add different other expenses, for example transportation cost, or your some overheads you want to recover, or you may have some taxes. So those things you define as a conditions within the pricing, and then you also add discount element. So based on the volume discount you want to, based on the volume you want to give some discounts. So those things you do it in this section. Credit management is another good module, and it helps you to manage credit limits for a customer. So you define in this area like for each customer what are the different credit profile you need to have, how much credit limit to be given, what are the credit risk you want to define, risk category you can define, and then you map all of them in the through the customer master. You can also define when a credit limit is exceeding, what should happen. Do you want to block sales order, or you want to create sales order but block delivery? So those type of things you will define in the credit management. Foreign trade is not many companies use, but it's more related to if you are a global company, then you want to put you want to incorporate sanctions or related legislations which are imposed by, say, US government. For example, if you are doing some foreign trade with North Korea or China or some other country where, say, United States has put certain sanctions. So foreign trade helps you to build into those controls, so you don't attract penalty when you are dealing and trading with those with trading with companies in those countries where some sanctions are applicable. Shipping and transportation mainly relates to the delivery of your products. So you define in the shipping the different types of shipping routes and the types of rates applicable. Transportation also same similar type of things you define. So mode of transportation and how the material should be sent, pilots type of information you define in these sections. Finally, in the billing, once material is delivered, you need to do the billing. So in the billing, you define billing. You can define within the billing different types of billing document types. So, and you can also define your invoice printout. You can put in your bank related information. You also need to define your tax related setup within the billing side. So when you print a billing document, it should carry all these things. In some countries, like now in India, we have e-invoicing mandatory, right? So you need to generate e-invoice from the GSTN portal. So that also you need to link with SAP. So those things you define within the billing module. Finally, when the billing is linked, it needs to create accounting documents. So you also define accounting relationship. So different type of GL account you want to post for different components of a sales order. So sales price, then taxes should go to another one GL account. Revenue should go to another GL account. Some recoveries related to, say, freight or any other expenses you want to post to some other GL account. So those things you define in the billing section. So SD overall, as you can see, it again involves lots of different departments. And for example, credit management is handled by the finance and department in touch with I think marketing department. Then billing is mostly it is by accounts department, but then shipping and transportation will be by the logistics department, who will be responsible for shipping the material from the factory to the customer's location. So they will be responsible to know, okay, who is the ship to party and all those things you define here. In case of submodule, so stands for materials management. So as you can see, it starts with purchase requisition. So you need to learn how many different types of purchase requisitions you can create for direct material, indirect material. Within the direct material, whether it is a inventorized material or you want to charge to a cost center. Those things you define here in the when you define as a document type within the purchase requisitions. You also define release strategy. So when the PR is created based on your company's approval policy, you can define for a certain limit X should approve. If it is above that limit, Y should approve. So those things you define here. You also configure GL account mapping. So when I'm posting to a cost center, which GL account I want to post, those things you define. You can also do a control with respect to budget. So when you create a purchase requisition, so you want to and check whether budget is there or not. So that configuration also you need to work with the finance team for that purpose. So once the PR part done, then sourcing team gets into action. So they will need to know okay, to procure certain these requirements, who are their source of vendors, and based on that then vendor selection starts. So here you understand like what are the different uh, types of vendors management I am having, so you learn all these things here. Based on your vendor selection, you may also have contract management. So you may have, outline contract created. So you learn how the outline agreement is done in SAP. So basically in outline agreement or contract management, you learn how a contract can be defined within SAP environment. You put a certain, date limit, like okay, this contract is valid for say 1 year or 3 years. Rate you define in the contract. You also identify for which product this rate is applicable, who is my vendor, from which plant I am going to procure these materials. So all these things you define in the contract management. What is my payment term with the vendor? Based on this contract management, then purchase order process starts. So whenever PR is created, then based, if you already have a contract, then PO can be created. So you learn here again, similar to purchase requisition, you also define it different types of purchase order. And again, like purchase requisition, you will also have here release strategy depending on your company's requirement. So you learn how the release strategy for purchase order is set up, and you also define here the vendor. In purchase requisition, you will not define vendor, but when you create a purchase order, you need to assign who is my vendor, and also you can define whether there is any advance payment is needed. So you do the setup related to that. You also, if you have a requirement to, put certain, when you are making some payment, so you want to have some retention, so you define retention, you do the retention related configuration. So that also you learn within the through the purchase order management. These are other different types of purchasing processes. So one is called consignment and subcontracting. So you learn these things in the materials management module. In consignment, consignment is a process where you receive the stock from a vendor, but ownership still remains with the vendor. You receive it in your warehouse, and when you consume that stock or when you withdraw the stock for your consumption, then you inform the vendor that yes, I have taken this stock. Then vendor will issue you the invoice and you pay to the vendor. Until that time, although stock will be within your premise, but it is not owned by you, and that's why it is called consignment stock. So you learn how this consignment stock is configured and how the accounting entry happens here. In case of subcontracting, it's a bit different thing. So you are a say manufacturing entity and you want to send some processes to be completed by a third party vendor because you don't have enough capacity or you don't have the expertise. So you will send your raw materials or semi-finished goods item to your subcontracting vendor, and they will process that item and send it back to you. So you learn how the sending of raw materials or SFG for subcontracting works in SAP, how the accounting entry is generated, because when you send these items to vendor, ownership of these items remain with you. This is called special stock item. So you have issued to a vendor, but the stock valuation does not go away from your books. In your GL account, it will still be part of your inventory. So in India also, you also need to understand how the GST works. So if you have issued items on subcontracting, and if you don't receive it within 1 year, then you would have taken input tax credit. So you need to revert back that input tax credit. You have to reverse it. So a lot of things you learn in subcontracting. Finally, inventory management. This is a very critical thing. You learn here how the different types of movements work in SAP. So when I receive inventory, how the GL account will be posted, which warehouse or storage location I need to put in the material. When I issue the stock, how do I manage that? So in inventory management, you also need to learn like what are the different movement types are there. So and what is the purpose of those different movement types? How does it help you to manage your inventory? Inventory management also has got another component called warehouse management. So that also you may want to learn. Finally, another last topic within materials management you learn is the invoice verification. So when you receive the invoice, then when you create a purchase order, then you do the inventory receipt, right? So which you learn in the inventory management, you do the goods receipt and all. And once the receipt is done, then you receive invoice from the vendor and you do the three-way match, it is called. So you learn how the invoice verification process is configured, how do you set up the tolerances. So you learn here defining the tolerance with respect to price, quantity, how to block the invoice if the tolerance is hit. So you learn these different type of things. Then also you also learn here if the vendor is liable for withholding tax. So how do I set up the withholding tax when I'm posting the invoice? In case of India, for example, you also have a concept called business place, particularly from the GST angle. So you configure business place also, and when you process the invoice, you post to a business place also. So you need to learn how the business place configuration works. So these are the different elements of materials management, and as you can see, again, it's not you will learn all of them in one go. So you select a few of them and then you focus. Maybe you want to learn contract management or subcontracting. Inventory management is a very big topic, so but you need to learn, this one is critical also. Okay, now let's come to production planning submodules. Production planning, production planning and scheduling, actually it is called PPS. So in production planning, you need to understand how the my production of finished goods will be happening. So you will be you need to understand what is my demand, or what is my what is my demand. So when I'm going to produce something, so how much quantity I need to produce. So you learn all these things here. You also define your BOM, bill of materials, within this production planning module. You also need to learn how the MRP is carried out, material requirement planning. So you will have a sale order for say 100 units of a product. So to make that, to sell that 100 units of product A, for example, you need to know what is the BOM for these materials and how many what are the things you need to do, to produce that 100 units, how much you have in the stock. So through the MRP you generate if you don't have in inventory enough stock, then it will create a production order when you execute the MRP run. So it will tell you like, okay, these are the items not available in inventory. So if suppose even raw material is not available, so it will generate a product purchase order and you need to procure those materials. If already raw material is available, then it will create a production order. So you need to produce the production order. So these different elements you do, and learn here. When you have a production order created, then you will also need to learn the production scheduling. So different stages of production scheduling. What is my start date, end date, when I'm going to complete my production, the different processes or stages involved in my production process. So those different things you learn within the production planning module. Here two critical part is BOM and routing you define. So you will also define your work center for routing. So each machine in SAP it is called routing. So sorry, a work center, and that work center you will identify. Okay, I want to move material A from work center A to work center B. So those things you learn within PP module. This is another module in SAP, plant maintenance. So plant maintenance, not many companies use, but large organizations they do use it. And plant maintenance helps you to carry out your maintenance plan. So and it can be preventive maintenance or some repairs related activity within the factory. And here you define your maintenance plan. You also define your inspection list and all. So you use some plant maintenance order to capture the different costs related to the plan, these plant maintenance activities. And when you complete those maintenance, then you settle the these plant maintenance order to a GL account. So you also need to learn how the GL account configuration or integration works with the plant maintenance module. So like plant maintenance, this is another quality management quality management SAP module. Within quality management you have like inspection you carry out. So when you receive some goods against a purchase order, so in your company you might have defined a process that it has to be inspected for the quality purpose. So your QM module will help you to carry out those inspection. Even when you have produced a certain item, so you want to invoke QM module to do the final inspection before it is sent for delivery. So these are the different elements you learn, like quality notifications you need to know. So when I'm having some issues, whom I need to notify, or you want to generate a periodic notifications, or some items are getting some certifications are required. So it helps you to generate these things based on some organizations are very for example like pharmaceutical industry, so quality is very essence there. So you implement quality management in such a way that you don't miss any certifications related things where you may have to submit to the government authorities. So quality management helps you to schedule different types of jobs, to generate the certificates or to communicate to the respected parties that okay, this is getting expired, renew it, and things like that. PS stands for project systems. So project systems is mainly used for your capital projects or operational projects. Mostly people use project systems for capital projects. So for example, you have a very large capital budget and you want to build say a plant. So you will use project systems to define control your total budget to make that plant, and monitoring also. So project systems helps you to not only control your project budget but also to monitor each stages of the uh, uh, build of that plant. It uses these different elements which you need to learn. Work breakdown structures. In short, it is called WBS element. So project is the highest node. Below that, it is called as WBS element. Then it also uses network activities. So when you create a project, so you need to charge different types of costs. So those costs are taken care through network or activities. It also helps you to do the project planning, budgeting and control. So you can define your budget, you can define your approval process. So you want, two persons, so one person reviewing, another person approving budget. So that type of things you can define. Then you will also have opportunity to do the monitoring. So you will be able to see project different stages where is it delayed. You can monitor all the dates you can put within the project PS module, and it can inform you, okay, this project was supposed to, this stage of the project was supposed to complete on X date, but it has gone out. So those things you will be able to monitor and control. Finally, you also need to learn how the project settlement works. So in this case, again, when the project is completed or periodically also, you need to transfer all the amounts posted on a project to GL account. As we learned earlier, right, that SAP works on a sub-ledger concept. So project is also a sub-ledger. So you need to do the settlement on a monthly basis. So you learn how the configuration works, how do you configure the settlement rule or settlement profile to transfer the different types of expenses from project system to your GL account or to a asset account. Those things you learn here. This is again another very core area, and you will not find lots of good consultants. But in this, for project systems, you need to have good finance understanding as well. BPC stands for budgeting, planning and consolidation, and this is mainly related to your finance side. So if you are a finance person and you want to get into BPC module, it's very interesting. And SAP in BPC also you will not find lots of good consultants. BPC mainly provides you solution related to budgeting, forecasting, consolidation and planning. So in budgeting, or as the name suggests, right, so you learn here to do the budgeting for a cost center or internal order or project systems using BPC module. So it also helps you to do the different level of approval processes. You can design your budgeting as per your reporting requirement. You can structure your budgeting flow, and you can also do lots of allocations rules within both budgeting and planning. It also helps you to do the forecasting. Forecasting basically means like you have made a budget or plan for say 2022, and now in the month of March already 3 months of 2022 have passed. For example, you have January to December fiscal year. So now you want to do the forecast based on 3 months actual. So 9 months you will have a plan, and 3 months will become your actual. So together these two becomes your forecast, because first 3 months there is no need for your plan, already actual data is available. So it also helps you to do the forecasting. Another good element of BPC is consolidation. So if a company, very large organization, for example Reliance, so it has lots of joint venture subsidiaries. So when it reports its result, right, so it also needs to report on its subsidiaries and joint ventures data. So BPC helps you to do the consolidation. You need to eliminate intercompany related transactions when you are reporting at the consolidated level. So you learn how the consolidation, netting and all elimination works in BPC module here. Legal and management reporting and analysis. So in BPC you also learn how the different reports are generated for both your external reporting and internal reporting purposes. And you can define in many ways, for example IFRS or Ind AS, or as per your internal management reporting related requirement. So there is no limit here. And as I mentioned, BPC is again another very niche area, and you will not find lots of consultants. So if you are a good finance, you have a good finance understanding, then it's a good module to get into. Okay, so now this is a very technical side. So basis and security related sub modules. So these are two different modules in SAP. And basis mainly they take care of all the systems related activities. They are taking care of administration role, database administrator role, batch administrator, transport administrator. So transport in SAP does not mean like the your vehicle transport. It's if you remember earlier I had mentioned that in SAP we have this landscape: development, quality, and production. So from development to quality to take your changes, we call it as a transport request creation. So basis is responsible to manage the transport related activities. Solution manager is another area where basis is mainly responsible. So they define solution manager is used for your when you work on any project implementation. So all the documentation, configuration related activities, attachments, everything you do through solution manager. So basis is again the owner of this solution manager. So if you want to get into these systems related roles, so you can uh, look for basis to learn basis, SAP basis you can learn. In case of security, it's mainly related to your network security. How to you need to ensure that vulnerability within your SAP network is removed, or the VAPT, vulnerability assessment, penetration testing, those type of things you need to ensure either yourself or you need to hire third party tools. Then workstation security, database security, these are the things you do as a security consultant. Roles administration, this is another area where, so roles basically means when a person joins SAP, he needs to be given certain authorizations. So that you as a security person will handle. So you need to learn how the roles are configured in SAP, what are the different objects related to roles, so what are the T codes in SAP which need to be given. So you need to understand those different type of things. SAP Above is a pure technical. So this is a technical person. SAP gives you a well-defined, config platform. So you can do the configuration and you can give to your client. But most of the time, client requirement does not meet with standard SAP solution. So client will ask you to do some modification as per their requirement. So these are the different activities as a technical person who is called as SAP Above you need to learn. So include program, module pool. These are the different technical terms, subroutine, interface. So I can tell you a few of them. So for example, interface. So you are building a interface with your bank for sending the payment file or receiving the bank statement. So you work with this interface related activity. Then forms, for example, forms is mainly like your customer invoice forms you want to send to your customer, right? Or bank customer statement. So those are, or sales order forms. So those things you design in this activity. Data conversion. So when you are receiving from third party, tool, so you are receiving say vendor related invoice in a different structure. So you will do the conversion. So above area will help you to learn how the data conversions happen. So there is a thing called IDOC, and you will also might have heard EDI, right? So when you receive the data through EDI, then in IDOC we need to do the data conversions. You need to map as per SAP standard the data coming from the outside world. User exits and body, these are the different SAP terminology where you learn how to find a solution to meet certain change requirement of the business. So this is a very good area if you are a technical person, and you need to have a good understanding of C++ and Java. Java is mainly used in most of the SAP ABAP is also based on Java. So if you have a good understanding and good experience in Java, so you may want to go with this module. Ariba is a add-on given. Ariba actually SAP acquired, I think, in 2012. It's a vendor supplier management portal. It's a cloud-based solution SAP gives you, and mainly it is used for your indirect material. So SAP connects buyers and suppliers through this tool, and uh, there are thousands of suppliers connected with the Ariba tool across the globe. And you learn Ariba has got lots of different modules. So Ariba supplier management, strategic sourcing, these are sub modules within Ariba. And again, Ariba is another very core niche module where we don't have lots of consultants. And if you are if you want to get into SAP, this you can think of. It's a very nice and you will get lots of projects to work on if you get a good understanding here. So direct spend, procurement buying. So like here you see guided buying, catalog. So in Ariba, vendors will be allowed to create their catalog, and as a buyer, you will be able to select items using the catalog, and then you place your orders. Then it also helps you to do the invoicing. So financial supply chain we call it. So this is another sub module within Ariba you can learn. So how the invoice is received from the supplier and how it is processed in Ariba, and all these modules are connected with your SAP S/4HANA or SAP ECC. So whatever transactions you do, for example supplier management, so your vendor master data will be in SAP, and then it will be linked to Ariba. So any changes happening in the Ariba platform, it needs to be replicated in your SAP environment. So I think this is all I have for the SAP modules and their sub modules. I want to briefly touch on the career opportunities in SAP. So basically, you will have two different types of roles in SAP when you learn one of the modules I talked about earlier. So we are called either functional consultant or technical consultants. So if you learn modules like finance controlling, sales distribution, materials management, human resources, plant maintenance or PP, PA, project system, production planning, Ariba, then you can work as a functional consultant. And qualification for these are like, you should have experience or you should have got your degree in one of the core area, like for example finance controlling, so you could be a MBA finance or you could be a chartered accountant. Likewise, so for sales and distribution you may be an engineering graduate or marketing guy, likewise. So if you have got any of those qualifications, then it will be good to get a good grip and understanding of these modules. Similarly, in case of technical, you need to have good technical sound knowledge. Like I mentioned, for Above, you need to have a Java. For Basis, you need to understand how the network works. Similarly, security side. So, Ariba, you can have both functional consultant as well as technical consultants in Ariba. For Fiori, okay, this is another module SAP has introduced from S4 HANA. In fact, in ECC also we can use Fiori. So Fiori is a new way of user interface. SAP introduced Fiori so to entice users how you do the how you see Facebook or Twitter. So on a click of a mouse, transactions are happening. So in Fiori also you define different boxes or tiles it is called. So you define tiles, how to take it through one step to another step by just click of a mouse. So Fiori is one very nice area to get into as a technical consultant if you want to. So I think that's all I have. Hope you liked this workshop related material which I was saying, like I was talking to the students in the Oxford College of Engineering. Please share your comment, and if you want to know more, you can contact me on this email ID. Thanks.